All right, we're back again, ladies and gentlemen. I've got Ryan and I've got my man Taron. I don't know if some of you guys, the new people that have subscribed, whether you know who Taron is. Taron was a main figurehead of the channel for a long period of time, up until obviously studies and work came in between, and then rightly so. That's what people need to do. But we're here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about the latest Chelsea news, not so much transfer news, but Kante injury and the repercussions, Thomas Tuchel contract extension. We're going to talk about Mason Mount, Reece James, Mendy contract extension. So it's going to be a fantastic Chelsea discussion. Let's go.
All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin.
All right, welcome back to the other side of the coin, ladies and gentlemen. Taron, my boy, it's been a while, man. How you doing?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been on the channel, but always have it on in the background, and it's great to be back on with Ryan as well. Looking forward to dissecting this game and some other interesting topics.
No, 100%, man. You always got me on the background, but I can't see any of the pictures, bro. Where's the other side of the coin? Yeah, logo and all
Let's
the
just
stuff.
have the camera shot. Sorry, I can't move it right now.
Fair enough. Ryan, my man. You know how much the channel loves you, bro. How you doing?
I'm good. I really wanted to see a picture of Miz in the background by Taron too. But maybe next time. And I happy to be here. My first ever video on the other side coin was with Taron, so happy to be here again.
Brilliant. Let's get straight into this, ladies and gentlemen. We've got quite a lot to cover, and I want to hear what the boys have to say about this. And of course, I want to hear, their thoughts and opinions around it. Let's just bring this up. All right, first up, ladies and gentlemen, is this particular news. N'Golo Kante is still waiting for exact diagnosis of his hamstring injury, but fears he will miss up to 4 weeks, underline the dilemma Chelsea face over his future. Look, boys, when I saw the injury and the way Kante was sort of, signaling to the bench that he needs to get off, and of course, what Thomas Tuchel said post-match as well, that looks pretty serious. I sort of said to myself in my head that it's minimum 4 weeks, minimum. So regardless of the diagnosis that's going to come back, it could possibly be more, but I think it's going to be 4 weeks minimum in my mind. 4 weeks out, and then after that, obviously he's going to come into the training again. It's not like he's going to jump straight back into the starting lineup. It's going to take at least a couple of weeks of adaptation again, get used to it. So you're looking at, all up, in my opinion, about 6 weeks. That's what I'm thinking. 4 weeks of being out, 2 weeks of integrating back into the team. That's potentially going to take us into what? So we're in August. August is scrapped off. September, by the end of September. So by the start of October, you can probably have a fully, someone who can start N'Golo Kante. I want to go to you, Taron, first up, and I want to talk about this particular news now. How do you feel about N'Golo Kante, these recurring injuries, whether it's hamstring, whether it's this or that, many different things that this guy's now happening over the past 3 seasons? This isn't something new. This is now a proper injury-prone player. Talk to me firstly about where's your headspace with this particular player? What do we need to do? Only 1 more year left in his contract as well. Do you give him an extension? What do you see his future like in terms of minutes? What is his role, I suppose, at Chelsea Football Club? Thoughts, bro?
Well, yeah, kind of all started with that Sarri Europa League final where Kante really should not have played that game, even though it was very important. Clearly playing with some kind of niggling injury, which went on to the Lampard season where he didn't play the start, where it started with Jorginho and Cover. And then he came back in and the injury started again and carried on to the second season. Now Tuchel, and for a player of Kante's quality, you do want him to be playing every single game. And it's very difficult to manage because Tuchel has a very difficult decision sometimes. Does he play a 70% fit Kante or does he save him? Because you can't really miss him out in these big games. If he didn't play against Spurs yesterday, we maybe wouldn't have created as many chances as we did and we wouldn't have dominated Son. So for me, I think the best solution is to already be looking into the transfer market for maybe a similar type Kante player, someone who can counter press quite high up. I know we have Gallagher right now who is doing that quite well, but I don't think he's quite as defensively astute. Can he be molded into that? I wouldn't really put it past Tuchel, but in terms of an all-round Kante player who has won us a league title, a Champions League, I don't really see Conor Gallagher as that option. So right now I'll be looking into the market. I know he's a very unique player, so maybe there's one or two max out there who can play and even half a similar game as Kante. So but I think the scouting has to be on point. We need to find someone who can cover as much ground, who can play at a very high level, who's composed on the ball, and has a very good mentality where he doesn't let his ego get the better of him. So that's my solution. Look to the transfer market now, build for the future, and let his deal run out, because there's seriously no point of keeping him if he's not available in these games.
I definitely hear you, man. I mean, Ryan, Taron's mentioned about Conor Gallagher not potentially being the right profile. You and me, we've talked off air and we said that perhaps he is someone who needs to give that opportunity now. And we'll talk about from a visual, tactical point of view why I think and why you may think as well that Conor Gallagher is probably someone who may fit there. But one other name that we don't talk about, and also obviously, ladies and gentlemen, on top of Kante, Kovacic is injured as well. So God knows how long he may be out for, maybe another week, another couple of weeks. Thomas Tuchel has mentioned that we want to focus on the medical room right now for Kovacic. We don't want to rush him back in. He did carry an injury in pre-season, so that's the other factor. But Ryan, one other name that we don't talk about in this whole midfield scenario is our new player, Kani Chukwuemeka. Everyone tends to forget about this particular player. Jorginho playing as a base. I mean, I don't know how much you've watched of Chukwuemeka, Ryan. I definitely haven't watched heaps, but obviously since we signed him, saw a lot of clips, saw a lot of his stuff, what he did in Aston Villa. He looks like he can definitely play as a 6, 8, or 10. He's got all facets of that game in him. Ryan, what's your thoughts of now that Kante is not there, and also Kovacic might be potentially out for a little bit as well? Is Chukwuemeka an option, or Gallagher, or you're thinking about back to the market?
I haven't watched his nickname like Kanye or his other name Kanye or something. I can't pronounce his yeah, sorry about that. But his pronunciation is best I learn it. Best I learn his pronunciation correctly. Well, how do you pronounce his name?
It's Chukwuemeka. Chukwuemeka.
Chukwuemeka. Okay, nice. So listen, I think that what Kante and Kovacic does really well is that it relieves Jorginho of that sole responsibility of acting as a regista. I think while Kovacic and Kante roams a lot and gets into the attack a lot, one thing they can do really good is that they're really press resistant in number 6 areas, which allows sometimes Jorginho to get forward a little more and find those passing angles. The thing is, with a Gallagher, I haven't seen Kanye as much, but with a Gallagher, even though he is good in central midfield areas and he could be good in what Kante does, contributing to attack, which is roaming forward and linking play forward and getting a shot or an assist on goal. I think that when it comes to relieving Jorginho of that sole register responsibility, that may not happen as much with a Gallagher. So one solution to that could be is that you could say, for example, like how we saw Reece James and Cucurella playing basically as fullbacks against Spurs, right?
Yeah.
We could see that in build-up, whether it's from the left or the right, those two players could act as tucked and inverted fullbacks, which we saw against Tottenham. We could have Gallagher be that pivot player alongside Jorginho as that free extra man, because we're going to have basically Jorginho and that fullback, whether it's Cucurella or Reece James, as that deep-most player in build-up, together with Gallagher and Mount dropping from the wing to be that extra man in midfield. We overload that midfield and we could build play through that. So I think with those conditions, we could see a player like a Gallagher or Kane do very well there, and maybe even a Loftus-Cheek do okay there. So those are the options I'd have. But if I had to give a first option to somebody, I would probably go for Gallagher right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same as well. And I want to go to Taron for this as well. Taron, earlier on today, I tweeted out that I want to continue seeing Ruben Loftus-Cheek here. Okay, I think it's good to bring in the talk about Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I want to continue seeing Ruben Loftus-Cheek here because I feel like he's sort of reinvigorated his career again at Chelsea. Like I feel like when we talked about Ruben Loftus-Cheek around here, that conversation was dead. Like I think everyone wanted him gone, and he needed to move on. But now that he's playing more in this sort of area, it's like he's back into the frame again, and he's doing well. And it's not people. People sometimes get a bit peeved off. Oh, is it right wing back? Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right wing back? You're having a laugh. And I'm like, you're not understanding the role. I think this is the message that both Ryan and I, we try our best to promote on this channel, is that forget about the name of the position right wing back, because people start thinking, oh, that's sort of like a defensive attacking. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they get muddled and they start thinking from a traditional point of view. But a right wing back for under Thomas Tuchel is essentially a right winger. Do you know what I mean? They're actually a right winger. And the tactical flexibility you get with Ruben Loftus-Cheek is you can tuck him in at times and potentially becomes a right midfielder, which then allows Reece James, as we saw against Spurs, to overlap in these areas, which he potentially becomes a back four. It becomes something like this with Cucurella. Let me just put some names around all of these. With Cucurella making it a back four with Reece James, right? Now, when you look at this scenario and how well Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been playing, I don't want to move him from that spot. And hence, this is why I come to the situation that there's no Kante, there's no Kovacic in midfield. Gallagher in this position, people say he's not a double pivot player, Miz. He's not a double. And I'm like, what is your understanding of a double pivot? Like, what do you think a double pivot player does? I don't think Chelsea Football Club, and this is where I want to hear from you as well, I don't think we really play with two sixes. We essentially play with Jorginho most times with the ball as the deepest midfielder. And this, brother, imagine this is Kante. How many times have you seen Kante bomb up and down here, Taron, and sometimes even get into these positions in the final third? Sometimes he's even trying to score headers, Kante. So from that perspective, I don't see why Gallagher won't be able to do that Kante role. Now, I completely understand what Ryan said. Defensively, I don't think Gallagher can give us what Kante gives us. And that is probably what an issue could be. But with the ball, I don't understand why Gallagher can't do what Kante does. I mean, thoughts, Taron, about this Gallagher situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting take. And I think just to touch on Loftus-Cheek, I think on the right wing back position, we see a bit with Trent Alexander-Arnold, how, Klopp has mentioned if he plays midfield, the reason he doesn't play midfield is clearly because there's too much going on in the midfield. There's too much pressure. He doesn't have the creativity to play all of his passes. But that right back / right wing back position gives him the space and freedom to drive at people and show his flair and freedom, which is what Ruben has. And if you guys remember the Watford game away last season, Ruben in the midfield was pressed so high he wasn't given the room to turn, and that's why he was taken out of the game. So just to touch on that quickly, that's a great point. And yeah, it's a very interesting take as well, how Ryan mentioned Reece James tucking into a very familiar CDM position almost at times as he played at Wigan. And he is comfortable playing as an inverted wing back, as we've seen many times last season. And even Mason Mount dropping in, which we did see again against Spurs, almost as a free roam attacking midfielder on the left. So maybe this is the right thing to do, because Jorginho is relieved of that pressure that he would get if he was alone. Say in the Lampard days when he was as a lone six, it was very expansive and he didn't really have the freedom and he was pressed too high or with no quick bodies around him. So I think this is a good take. And Gallagher driving forward, we saw at Crystal Palace, very comfortable in his dribbles, very good and good decision making in the final third, a good final shot, a good pass on him, very good.
We saw that against Spurs as well, Taron, where Gallagher got into the box several times and he was playing in midfield basically. So he's doing what Kante was doing.
Exactly. And I think in the Arsenal game pre-season, the reason it wasn't working was because it was a bit too expansive and there wasn't enough space for him really to counter-press well. But in the Spurs game, I saw something quite interesting where Gallagher had the chance to counter-press, but there were many Chelsea bodies around him that gave him the freedom to kind of push everything onto the Spurs player, which won the ball. I think it was played into, maybe this was the Havertz one that ended in a foul for Romero, something along those lines. But he did get into good positions and obviously got the ball on the edge of the box from Havertz, played into Mount, which potentially one of them should have scored. But yeah, the only issue I would pick up is maybe his intelligence in the pressing was good for Crystal Palace last season. But is it going to be as smart in a Tuchel system? Is he going to have the right intelligence of when to go forward, say onto a CDM, when to hold back onto another midfielder? That's the only thing I would say. But I'm sure Tuchel can work on that, because that's just a small element of maybe a few training drills of telling Gallagher when to press and the exact moment when maybe a DM is in the wrong body shape and he could potentially lose the ball in a dangerous position. So, yeah, I think right here where you do overload that midfield with Mount and Reece James and Ruben tucking inside, I think it could actually give Gallagher a lot of freedom to express himself. And we're going to have to see, because right now we don't really have any other options apart from maybe nurturing him into this role and hoping for the best like we did see last season.
No, this is why I was more opting towards Gallagher. I mean, Ryan, people, and this, I want to explore this to a detailed level. People are worried, Ryan, that Gallagher, he's not press. Apparently, he's not press resistant. His ball playing ability in terms of the build up is not always adequate. This is why they want Ruben Loftus-Cheek to come in and partner with Jorginho whilst Kovacic and Kante are absent. But as I said, I don't want to disrupt Ruben Loftus-Cheek's progress from that wing-back spot, because I feel like he's giving us what we kind of need from that wide area in terms of taking on his man and being dynamic, using his pace. He's got into that box quite a few times against Spurs as well. There was a Jorginho long ball where he should have got the header, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. There was another one in the second half where he entered the box. I mean, Ryan, are you someone who's thinking, yes, there is flaws in Gallagher's game, but we shouldn't disrupt what Ruben Loftus-Cheek is doing as well? Or are you sort of thinking maybe potentially Ruben Loftus-Cheek in that sort of midfield alongside Jorginho?
I will say that when it comes down to Gallagher, I don't think he needs as much space as Ruben would. I totally get what Taron was saying. I agree with that a lot. Is that kind of like Alexander Arnold when he comes from that angle from the right hand footed side, that pocket on the right hand side, in the right hand side of midfield, gives him a lot of space to drive at players and find those assists. Well, Alexander Arnold's case is like those crosses and those line breaking passes. But in Loftus-Cheek's case, it's more like driving at players and laying it off for winners and forwards, right? I think that does Loftus-Cheek really well there, and he needs that space to operate. I think Loftus-Cheek at right wing back will be found out against low blocks. I think against low blocks, when you need a right wing back to drive at players from wide positions, I think he would be found out there that that's not his natural game. He better drive towards players almost centrally in that right hand side pocket, that right RCM pocket, where against medium to high lines, not necessarily low blocks. I know what you're gonna say, Miss. Well, maybe we could have him invert and then have a wide winger. Problem with that is if you're gonna do that whole game now, it pins down your right winger. We only have one pure right winger in Raheem Sterling, because Mason Mount isn't a 1v1 wide player. Havertz. So if you pin down your best creative final third player in Raheem Sterling on the right hand side, then kind of disrupts your whole front three from being fluid and dynamic to being stagnant. So that's why I think Loftus-Cheek will get found out, and that's why I'd be open to having Gordon come in from Everton and play that right wing back role, because I think he'd be fantastic there. Another thing is, while I started off that point with space, I don't think Conor Gallagher needs that amount of space Loftus-Cheek needs, and that's why I think he would be a better player in a pivot than a Loftus-Cheek. Gallagher, I think that playing that Kante role, I know you say that he's not as good defensively as Kante, but I would say he's probably equally just as good defensively as Kovacic. Kovacic is above average in winning tackles. I would say that Conor Gallagher is also above average in winning tackles too. I would say that he's press resistant in central midfield areas, and that he could drive at players, link play, and also get a shot on goal and assist. So even though I don't think he excels at anything, I think he's a jack of all trades in that position, could contribute in that Kante role. And yeah, I'd much rather see Gallagher in that role than Loftus-Cheek, because I still feel Loftus-Cheek needs more space to play with than Gallagher.
Exactly. This is why I've opted for Gallagher. By the way, I'm not the one who thinks he's not press resistant or he's defensively inadequate. Some of the Chelsea fans think that about him, and I'm like, he's not a bum. Like, Conor Gallagher is a very good player, and there has to come a point where obviously Thomas Tuchel will need to coach as well. He's a young player and he's got room for improvement, but. Good to talk about that. Let's move on to the next topic. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know how you feel about this double pivot situation. I hate calling it double pivot because people start thinking these two players just play side by side. They don't understand that one of them is really a box-to-box player, and the other one is a deep sort of lying midfielder. And at times they can sort of interchange as well. We've seen in this season already how Jorginho sometimes moves very further up as well. So interesting to know what you guys think about it as well. All right, let's go on to the next topic, ladies and gentlemen. Confirmation. Todd Boehly wants to extend Thomas Tuchel's current contract. Talks are ongoing via Nathan. This is via Nathan Gissing from Instagram, goes by the name CFC News page. And this is further on from another journalist, Andy Dillon. Chelsea have started contract talks with a view of giving Thomas Tuchel 2 more years on top of what he already has. And it goes on to say Chelsea's new ownership group have been hugely impressed with his qualities and leadership. The board hope to convince him to tie his future down until 2026. Taron, I'll go to you first up again. Do you know what? There's obviously criticism of Thomas Tuchel, how our attackers, we haven't been able to get the best out of them. But then again, I'm starting to think a lot of our attackers are very average because Sterling is giving exactly what Thomas Tuchel needs. Cucurella is giving exactly what Thomas Tuchel needs from the left side. Every signing, even Koulibaly, every signing that Thomas Tuchel has done this particular window has really worked out well. So I'm at the position where let's give him his people and let's see how Thomas Tuchel does. And on top of that aggression I saw against Spurs and Antonio Conte, I didn't know Tuchel had that aggression in him. Do you know what I mean? And I'm very, very surprised of how he's interacted in that particular match. And it kind of gave me a good feeling that this guy truly cares about Chelsea. He's so passionate about Chelsea. I'm all up for the 2-year contract extension. For me, I don't think there is a better manager out there at the moment for Chelsea Football Club to lead us through the next phase. I'm absolutely fine with Thomas Tuchel. He's so well spoken. He's very transparent as well in press conference. Tactically, he outdid Antonio Conte, not just in the weekend, but he's been outdoing him for a while now. Your thoughts about Thomas Tuchel, how you feel about his tenure so far, and the fact that 2-year contract extension, you're up for it?
I think it's just the way he led us through the club through possibly one of the most difficult spells since I can really remember. Like, which other manager? I'm sure Mourinho would have potentially struggled to be that role model. Conte would have become quite combustible, but just deserves all the respect for how he guided us through and was the kind of spokesperson through, a lot of serious political issues that really could have tipped him over to leaving the club. And he stayed, got us into top 4, into 3rd place, got us to a few cup finals. Tried to keep some of our key players, but didn't really work in the end. And has really shown a lot of, as it says there, a lot of leadership and qualities when Todd Boehly's come in to highlight which signings he wants very clearly, show how he wants the club to be run. And I think it should be more than 2 years, to be honest with you, even though I don't even think that's humanly possible.
Tie him down for 10 years.
Yeah, 20 years if you can, you know what I mean? It's like, just do the impossible, because I know it's a bit soon into a managerial career to be saying this, but he's by far one of my favourite managers I've seen, not even in Chelsea, in Premier League. Just his character, his passion, his tactical skills, his management, everything about him is very likeable. So I don't understand why it's only 2 years. Like, make it 3, make it 4.
Anything in particular that you're, and I wouldn't say annoyed, anything in particular that you're not too you don't like something about Thomas Tuchel, something that frustrates you, whether it's in game, outside of the game. Obviously, he's a very likable person. He's tactically very, very knowledgeable. He's done a lot of good, as you said, during this turbulent time. But as a manager, do you feel any aspect, whether it's man management or even in-game tactics, that sort of frustrates you, that you want to see better, or he's flawless at the moment?
I think that's an interesting question. Yeah, a few things that come to my mind. First of all, I think he doesn't really have a plan B at some occasions. We saw a lot last season, especially playing a five at the back when things weren't going right. There wasn't a clear plan when we had to switch to a four and we had to move maybe someone out wide or someone in the middle. It did kind of look like a last-second option and very kind of off the mark and very what do you call it? Not very tactically and knowledgeable in terms of training. So I think maybe if he did maybe realize in the game that something wasn't going right and some tactics weren't working, that maybe in the 60th minute he already plans to move someone out wide and change the whole game. We did kind of see it in the Spurs game, but in my opinion, it doesn't happen consistently enough. A lot of times last season, especially. So maybe have a clear plan B in each game to change to a four, to change to a three in midfield, to swap the five at the back, anything like that. Because sometimes, no matter how much you prepare for a game, some things can change, whether it's the atmosphere in the stadium, whether it's the crazy management skills of the opposition coach. Some things can happen where you have to, adjust things mid-game. And apart from that, maybe making substitutions a bit sooner at some occasions when we're, playing quite badly in the game and he waits to the 60th minute, 70th minute to make a change. Well, just do it at half time because it's wasting a good few minutes in the game where we could have altered things, it could have got a goal, and it could have eased a lot of the pressure. But apart from that, I say Tuchel has done pretty well for me and pretty flawless.
Fair point. Right, I don't want to ask you the same question in regards to, what are the things you like about Thomas Tuchel? I think it's well documented, Ryan, when we've done tactical shows.
Nothing, full stop.
Nothing full stop. Nothing full stop.
Get this three at the back guy out my club, bro. I need 2 attacking eights, 1 single six, and 2 center backs.
Exactly. We've always laughed about these sort of things. But what I want to ask you, Ryan, is what will it take for Thomas Tuchel to now, I suppose, and I know you can talk a little bit about the transfers and whatnot, but what I want to hear from you is where Chelsea Football Club are right now to potentially start challenging in the Premier League, get that consistency. That performance against Spurs is something I want to see on a regular basis. Out of 10 matches, I want to minimum see 8 to 9 matches that we play like that. And maybe there could be 2 matches where, it could be a bit up and down and we still get a result. Do you know what I mean? So what I want to ask you, Ryan, is obviously 2-year extension being talked about, which is well deserved for Thomas Tuchel. But what do you want to see now for him to take us to that next level where we do start competing for the Premier League?
Okay. One, we are not going to see us play like that often because there's very few games in Premier League that is so open, back and forth like a table tennis match, right? So when we have space, Chelsea plays historically under Tuchel, under our previous managers. When we have space to play with back and forth matches, competition football, cup football, we do really well. The thing is, the difference is that teams have figured out Chelsea and realized that the best way to get a result against them is to sit back and counter us because we don't know how to break down low blocks simply because our attackers are very limited. Right? The thing is, I think that with Thomas Tuchel, we are on the right direction. Just seeing the type of players that we've been linked with this summer and a clear plan that Tuchel has to make that next step in our transition period, I would say that I'm buzzing with this 2-year extension because I feel that Thomas Tuchel's reign is now beginning. I feel that for the past 2 years, he played the hand he was dealt with, and now he's creating his hand. We've seen the kind of attack we're linked with. I mean, I know news could change in a
It's
couple of
it's the
days.
right profile. You're right. Every player that we've been linked with and we're looking to bring in, it fits the bill what he wants to do in those roles.
Yeah, I mean, like we got Lukaku out. He didn't fit the bill.
Yeah.
Simple things like this. We could see that we're doing a complete clear out in our attack. I wouldn't be surprised if we get rid of all our attackers, to be honest. If you see who we're linked with. For example, this Gordon is a straight replacement for Callum Hudson-Odoi. If Hudson-Odoi needs to go out on loan,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
It has this guy. He saw the link with Yeremy Pino.
Yeah, who is this guy, bro, from Villarreal?
He's
I've
one
not
of the
watched him, man.
best talents from Spain, best young talents from Spain. He's the top 20 young talents in the world under 23 right now.
What position does he play?
He's a right winger, and he's
Wow,
very good.
okay.
He's going to be very, very good. That's a direct replacement for example, Christian Pulisic,
Yeah.
right? If we see the Pulisic links in Newcastle today.
Yeah.
Hakim Ziyech, who we would be willing to get rid of. Wilfred Zaha, a next player.
Yeah.
Timo Werner, Aubameyang. I just named 4 players that we link with could be direct replacements for our
Yep.
current attackers who just do not fit the bill, right? I'm saying that you can see that we are on the right track because the type of attackers we're going for is people that can make instant impact / could impact our future, right? It's a mix between experience and youth. Another thing is that it opens the door for us next year to go in for world-class attackers like a Nkunku, like a Rafael Leao,
Yep.
like a Leroy Sané. So the signings we buying is so strategic now. It allows us to compete now, but Miz, I'm telling you, with the players we are getting, give it this window, January and June. After June, when we get a DM, when we get a better right wing back example, another centre back to replace Thiago Silva. When you have that, together with the exits that you're seeing potentially going to happen at Chelsea, I'm telling you that we are going to compete for the title, not this season, but next season. After next summer, we have to compete for that title. And we are on that trajectory, and that's why I'm so happy that Tuchel's renewing for 2 years because I feel that his reign is now beginning. His project is now beginning. His project is beginning now. And we're going to see the fruits of this project. We need to stay patient, but I have full confidence in Boehly and what he's doing, man.
I love him, man. Absolutely love him. Love exactly both what you guys have said. Some positives as to, what he brings and how he carries himself in turbulent times. So much calmness, but at the same time, very transparent. Some of the things that he can improve on, as Taron said as well. And loved what you said, Ryan, in regards to now is the real project starting for Thomas Tuchel, because all this time he was playing with players that not really his players. Now he's bringing his players. Profiles are matching what he needs from those roles. And yeah, this 2-year extension is when we need to start seeing an explosive nature of Chelsea to compete in the Premier League. Now, absolutely well said, man. I can't wait for this scenario to start. And by all means, tie him down for 2 more seasons, no problems. I think he's already got 1 more in his contract extension, in his current contract, but 2 more on top of that, which is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to now talk about the 3 contract extensions that's coming up, and then there's been lots talked about these 3 players, especially these 2, Mason Mount and Reece James. Let's have a look at the news first of all. Todd Boehly is looking into implementing a US-style contract policy for youngsters at Chelsea, locking the likes of Reece James and Mason Mount down to 7-year contracts. Armando Broja is also on the list. I mean, we gave Armando Broja a new contract last season, but we're looking to tie him down with more wages and longer term as well, and which makes me think that we don't want to sell Armando Broja. We'll see what happens there. Talks over a contract extension for Edouard Mendy are now progressing in the right direction as well. Now, once again, I'll go to you, Taron. Mason Mount and Reece James, I'll give you my verdict on the situation. For me, these 2 are the creme de la creme when it comes to Chelsea Academy products. For me, as much as we all love Mason Mount. Reece James is I think he is the best thing I've ever seen from our academy come through. Like this guy is getting touted around for Real Madrid. He's getting touted around for Man City. Like there's some top clubs that want his signature. He's an absolute beast. He was asleep against Everton. He was asleep all throughout the preseason, but we saw when this beast is awake and alive, what he did against Spurs. Whether it's RCB position, tactically becoming a right back position, and then he switched to the right wing back where he pumped in that really nice cross for Kai Havertz, who should have scored. How you feel about the long-term contracts? I personally, I love it. I love tied both of them down, especially Reece James down for 7-year contract, because there will be suitors for Reece James, and if they want Reece James, they're going to have to pay us £500 million pounds to break those contracts. I like these long contracts, man. Thoughts on Reece James and Mason Mount, and also Edouard Mendy's contract extension?
I mean, there's 3 ways of looking at this. I think first of all, from a Chelsea fan perspective, 100% like sign the contracts, because these two are by far some of the best talents that have come out of the academy in terms of dealing with pressure, playing at the highest level in the Bernabeu, in the Champions League final, in many difficult times of last season. I think technically Reece James is simply one of the best I've seen in a Chelsea shirt. Without even putting too much effort in, just the absolute whip of cross into the box, and unfortunately not the goal. He's seriously a generational talent. In my opinion, the best right back in world football now, past Trent. After a lot of debates, I think that is pretty much certain now. And
I guess more balanced than Trent. Trent doesn't seem to have that defensive quality which Reece does, and Reece also has that attacking quality.
I just think he's just miles ahead overall as a football player, and as a defender who I'd rather have in a team is 100% James. In terms of Mason Mount, I think wouldn't say quite generational yet, but still an amazing talent. Had a more difficult season performance, in my opinion, last year, even though the numbers are better. But I think this season he looks like he's up for it again. And then moving on to, I say, the Boehly perspective, very, very smart, because if they do decide to move on, say, after 3, 4, 5 years maybe, he still has enough years on the contract to make a good amount of money off them. It's not like they're running down their contract and he's going to have to sell them for free like he did with Rudy and Christensen. But I think from Mason Mount and Reece James, it's a very big commitment, because if they do decide to stay at the club for 6-7 years, I don't know if they're going to have to stay. They're not at the move to Real Madrid or Bayern Munich in the future, which may be on their wish list after Chelsea. So it's a big kind of call for them. Do they want to commit a big future to this club and create a real legacy like John Terry, like Lampard's, like even Drogba's, or do they want to maybe have a stage in their career where they do want to try La Liga? Do they want to try the Bundesliga? Do they want to try Serie A? So in my opinion, they need to sign the contracts, because right now it looks like our club's going in a clear direction for once. Not for, like the Mourinho's where Kante's was very, very short term. And it didn't look like there was a real project for 5-10 years. But if they do sign that contract now, they're signing their contracts into a project that does look like it can last for a long time under Thomas Tuchel, with experienced players coming in, young players coming in. And we look like very, very soon, as Ryan said, we could be competing 3, 4, 5 trophies for the next long-term future. So if I was them, I'd sign the contract right now.
You did mention about Reece James and how clear he is in world football at the moment. I want to quickly ask you about Mason Mount, because you felt that maybe he's not in the same level. He is still a good player. What particular area that kind of, when you see Mason Mount, that sort of irritates you that I want him to improve in this area a little bit more? I like his total package, but this is where I feel like he needs to give me a little bit more so I can feel satisfied. Is there a particular area that you feel, Mace, you need to improve there?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because obviously I do rate him highly, but there are moments where I do kind of kick the sofa angry at stupid decisions that he's made. Starting off with maybe his decision making in the final third. At some occasions, he doesn't release the balls quick enough. He's a little bit slow off the mark. I'm not saying this is all the time, but many occasions last season, Anfield at the start, where he could have released it to someone a bit earlier, to Havertz or Lukaku a bit earlier. But he just takes that 2-3 seconds to hesitate. Whereas I know this is a bit crazy, where Kevin De Bruyne, who is a level where we're trying to get at, will make that pass straight away, thread the ball through to Haaland, and bang, it's a goal. But Mount is a bit hesitant in that aspect, and maybe games last season he did kind of drift out of it. But in big moments where we needed him, you didn't really realize he was playing. He wasn't falling for the ball to feet. Even the Everton game, Tuchel did the little sleeping sign because I believe Mason Mount was a ghost out of the game. And it's not like a consistent thing. He is a young player, and you can't expect him to be your De Bruyne, your Son at 23 years old. But if he does want to get up to that level, every single game he needs to be dropping at least an 8. And it's sad because in the 2021 season, in my opinion, under Tuchel, every single game was a 7 or an 8. No matter if it was West Ham, Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Champions League final, he was dropping a 7 or an 8. But as we saw last season, some games were a 3, some games were a 4, one game was a 10, one game was a 2. It's just about getting that consistency season in, season out, which is the De Bruyne level. But it's difficult to do that as a young player. But just those two. But that's why I say Reece James, every single game for me is at least a 7 or an 8 this season and last season. He's really, really special, man. And I think he's actually going to be worth hundreds of millions in the future if we do decide to sell him.
Ryan, in our recent video, there were people during the premiere literally clapping when you did that nice monologue and talked about how you care about Chelsea. You don't care about the names. You care about Chelsea. You want Chelsea to win trophies. That's what you're here for. That's what we're fans of Chelsea Football Club. And you also mentioned that don't be surprised if down the track, some of your favorites in the likes of Mason Mount, let's just say, we're just throwing the name out there. It doesn't have to be Mason Mount. It could be any one of your favorites. They could potentially be moved on as well if they don't fit exactly what Thomas Tuchel requires in the system. I want to ask you, Ryan, how do you feel about these long 7-year contracts, probably with a bumper wage as well? I feel like both the players deserve it. Definitely Reece James undoubtedly deserve it. I want to get your thoughts on how you feel about these players with long contracts, long wages, and potentially at times may not completely give us what we need in the system.
So, Miz, let me ask you a question. How many dislikes do you want on this video now before I speak? Because there might be a lot, right?
I want truth. Last video, we thought we were going to get insults, but we actually got a lot of applause because how truthful. I think the reason why people like this channel is we don't shy away from talking the uncomfortable conversations. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the gate is open, bro. As many dislikes as possible.
Okay, nice. So here it is, right? I think that Reece James is the best right back in the world right now, right?
Yeah.
And for a young player like Reece James to come from our academy and be that, I think that deserves the praise and the hype from our Chelsea fans. That should be our golden boy, right? That should be the one that people say we want to stay here for the rest of the career. We want him to be a future captain. That. I don't know if it's something about Reece James's personality, he's more shy or reserved or whatever it may be, but he doesn't seem to carry that hype with him. Nobody will disagree that he's a great player, but he just doesn't have that same hype as someone like Mason Mount has. Let me tell you something. Mason Mount is a good talent. Is he a world-class talent? No, not in my opinion. Someone told me today on our group chat, Mason Mount is a special player. I said, okay, Mason Mount is turning 24 years old in January. Name me one attribute Mason Mount has that is special on pitch, not personality, not pressing. One attribute that Mason Mount excels in, that makes him a special talent, a special player in world football right now.
Besides pressing, I don't think he excels in any other areas. Like, I think his shooting technique is good, but sometimes it's not good. We saw against Spurs. We saw last season in the cup finals as well. Passing at times good, at times not good.
I would say he is a jack of all trades player, that's
Yeah, yeah,
specialist in nothing.
yeah.
And
Specialist in pressing.
it was a chest in the gym or something. Specialist in pressing for attacking player. Come on now. Thing is, he's good at passing. He's good at finishing. He is good at with his vision. He's good. He is good. Would I say he's above average? No. Would I say he's great? No. Would I say he's world class? No. The thing is, with Mason, there's a ceiling there. I think that is very high with him, right? But the thing is that he's approaching 24 years old now, and he hasn't made that ceiling yet. When it comes down to attributes, when it comes down to vision, when it comes down to impact on the game, when it comes down to end product. People would come and tell me, oh, but he has his best stats last season. Well, I mean, he played in the final third last season, so obviously he was supposed to have better stats, right? If he's always in the edge of the box, inside the box, well, yeah, he would have to have good stats. The thing is with Mason Mount is that I can name you a 22-man squad with 2 players in each position, the best players under 23 in the world, and Mason Mount would not make that in central midfield or a winger.
You're
Under
probably
20.
right. As a winger, he wouldn't. And as a central midfielder, there are some
No.
big-time ballers out there in world football.
Yeah, under 23. And what I'd say is that I have no idea. I have no problem with us investing in this player because we believe in his ceiling. Because if you believe in his ceiling, rightly so, right? The thing is, I just find it's kind of odd, this notion that Mason Mount is irreplaceable and undroppable and unsellable, and nobody could come here to replace Mason. We can't buy him because we're not going to drop Mason. We
It's
can't
the proper
put this
Chels,
guy
Ryan. It's the proper Chels that say that.
bleed blue. But the thing is that I don't see him as that guy.
Yeah.
And could he be? Maybe. Do I see the raw materials that he could be? Yes. But if you were to tell me, no, I could pick any 3 under 24 central midfielders in the world being Chelsea, he would not make my midfield 3. If you could tell me to pick any wingers in the world, he would not make my list under 24, under 23. And that is that with this 7-year contract, I don't want there to be this notion that Mason Mount is this undroppable star boy, and if Tuchel drops and Tuchel gets sacked, and there will just be this whole uproar in the fan base if he gets dropped, because he just isn't to that level yet. He is not to that level where he's undroppable, and I don't want the club and the fans to send the wrong message about this player, that he's an Mbappe-like player. We can't make Mason Mount the Mbappe of PSG. Where I'm not saying that he's going to get so much money and have so much control and decisions with Miz. If Tuchel drops Mason Mount for 6 games in a row, you know how people's going to call for his head, even if we play better without him. And the thing is, with a 6 or 7-year contract, I just don't want to send the wrong message for the wrong players. I think Reece James, a generational talent, the best right back in the world at such a young age. Yes. But for players like Mason Mount, as much as I like him, I don't think maybe we should think about the message we send into that player. We already hear that he's gives side eyes and dirty eyes when he's dropped for one game. Listen, as much as I love you, Mason Mount, but you're just not that guy yet, pal. And I want you to be that guy because I love Chelsea. But
Look, I think this is somewhat Taron kind of alluded to, but you absolutely expressed it to the level that it needed to be expressed. I think this is when, as well, when Taron said, like, Reece James definitely above, but Mason Mount is. I think we all feel that way. And once again, this is no slight or slander on Mason Mount. He's still a top quality player, but I think we need to, as a fan base, need to understand he ain't the complete package. There's a lot of stuff that he needs to improve on. And as Ryan said, 7-year contract. 7-year contract is a long time. Hopefully it works out for us. I truly, truly hope it does work out for us. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end. I do want to have a separate segment. Maybe I'll get the boys again and talk about Edouard Mendy. There's a very interesting conversation brewing about Edouard Mendy in terms of, okay, he's a great shot stopper, but he's been making some sort of silly sort of scenarios when it comes to ball distribution. But I want to keep that for a separate video. Maybe I'll get the boys out and we'll talk about that on a different time. Hope you guys have all enjoyed this, ladies and gentlemen. Smash the like button. Make sure you follow the boys on social media, on Twitter. Their links are in the description. Before we go, Taron, some final thoughts on everything that we've talked about. How'd you feel today, bro? Been a long time since you've been back.
Certainly an interesting way to come back. Talking about a lot of sensitive topics in the fan base, but I'm all for that, to be honest. And yeah, just great to be back on the channel. Great structured channel as always, with all the different topics we've covered in this video in such a short period of time. As you know, I've always praised you since the start of your the way your channel operates. You too, man. And Ryan, great to be back with you. Make sure to follow you back. And yes, gonna be great to see you guys next time.
Hey, we don't shy away from talking about the sensitive topics here, because this is what people need to take away and I always say, let the information marinate, let it cook in your head before you start typing away with your comments and get overexcited about certain scenarios. Think about what we talked about and then come back and see, were the boys saying anything worthwhile? Or I didn't like this or I didn't like that. No problems. Ryan, my bro, as always, you always bring the A game, and great to have you. As I said, I want to bring both of you guys back again, talk about Edouard Mendy down the track. Ryan, any final thoughts before we go?
No, just fun to talk to you all again. Love being on this channel, and yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, smash the like button, subscribe if you're here for the first time, hit the bell notification as well, and hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Until next time, see ya.